Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another segment of Your Money with MRC. I am your host, Hector Gazar, and my guest today, guys, is Mr. Eric Hansen, attorney, bankruptcy attorney, has been doing bankruptcies for the past 20 years. And today's segment, guys, is exactly that. Our guest is going to cover what the difference is between a Chapter 7 and a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So, Eric, thank you very much for coming on today. We welcome you. Can you let us know what's going on in bankruptcy news? Because I know a lot has changed since when I filed bankruptcy back in 2007. A lot of things have changed. I got caught up in this whole financial mess like everyone else did. I bought houses. I over-leveraged credit cards. I bought a lot of different cars. And I ended up doing a Chapter 7. I know a lot of things have changed since 2007 in the landscape of bankruptcies. So can you inform our listeners what's been going on and what are some of the changes that have been implemented with bankruptcies?
Of course, Hector, and good afternoon. Primarily, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy is good for a lot of different people for number one reason. It's those people that have a lot of unsecured debt. And what I mean by unsecured debt is a debt that's not secured by a piece of property or an automobile. Unsecured debt is your credit card debt. You go out and you get an account with J.C. Penney's and you charge up things on that, and then you can't pay it off. And what happens? You get credit card people calling you. You've got collection agencies calling you. What a Chapter 7 does and what the bankruptcy courts provide is relief for those people that just can no longer afford to pay these payments. Gotcha. And what Chapter 7 does is we can basically eliminate almost all credit card debt. Now, of course, there are some exceptions. There's also some other considerations which a debtor, when we meet with debtors, we find out information. Are they a homeowner? Are they a renter? Things of that nature can also play into whether or not a Chapter 7 is what we want to do.
Got you. Now, with the Chapter 7, that eliminates all the debt. That gives a client a fresh start, correct?
That's correct.
Are they able to keep their homes or any of their property and exclude stuff out of the bankruptcy if they want to keep certain stuff or no?
Typically, yes. However, each case has to be evaluated. A Chapter 7 may not be available for people that have a tremendous amount of equity in a home. In that case, a Chapter 13 may be something that we want to talk about. But typically, they start over, they start fresh, all the credit card debt is eliminated, and for a lot of people, that's exactly what they need.
Now, Eric, when I filed a Chapter 7 myself years back, when I went to go speak with the attorney, I almost felt like a failure. Like I wasn't being successful anymore. It was a taboo. I was very afraid of filing the bankruptcy. But once I filed the bankruptcy, as you mentioned, all the collections, all the calls stopped, and I felt this enormous amount of pressure off my shoulders and my chest. Now, what can you tell our listeners about the same people that had the same taboo of filing a bankruptcy if they're a failure, and not understanding that it is a financial instrument to use?
Well, absolutely, and that's why the bankruptcy courts have put bankruptcy into place, because we don't want people to consider themselves a failure, and a lot of people get into financial trouble. We're not here to judge if you're good with money or you're bad with money. The bottom line is, if you need to file a Chapter 7, you need to file a Chapter 7 because you don't want to have to not be able to put food on your table at the end of the month because you're paying off too many credit debts. And Chapter 7 and the bankruptcy courts have allowed people to alleviate that debt and move on with their lives. And as I said before, we're not here to judge you. It doesn't matter. People of all walks of life have come to us needing to file a Chapter 7. So, and it's a tremendous feeling of relief when you can start over.
Now, let me ask you a question, Eric. Is there anything that's exempt from a Chapter 7? Can you include student loans, medical bills? What can you not include in a Chapter 7?
Hector, you're exactly right. There are certain types of loans that are exempt. Student loans are a good example. We cannot discharge a student loan. There's also certain types of government loans which cannot be discharged. And depending on each individual's situation, we can advise them whether or not they fall in the exemption or they don't. So we have to find those things out, but typically most loans that are unsecured can be filed, and they will be discharged at the end of the case.
Okay, another question. 7, 13. You have to qualify for each one of these chapters, correct?
That's right, and the reason why there's a distinction is because a Chapter 13 is really a reorganization of your debt. And when I say reorganization, basically what a Chapter 13 does is it's usually a situation where a debtor has a lot of secured debt, or typically a homeowner, where they have a house, the debt is secured with that house, the house is the collateral, and they want to keep that house. How can they do that? Well, under a Chapter 13, they can still keep their house in most cases, eliminate some unsecured debt, but all their secured debt gets paid back in a plan. And typically the bankruptcy courts will make a 36-month to a 60-month plan of repayment.
Now, how many times can you file bankruptcy?
Well, you can file a Chapter 13 every 7 years.
Every 7 years?
Yes.
Now, why would someone do a Chapter 13 bankruptcy opposed to maybe doing, say, a debt settlement?
Well, because a lot of times creditors, they don't want to give the debtor much of a break, and especially when there may be some equity in their personal, or not their personal, but their real estate, their primary home. If there's equity and the creditor knows that, why are they going to settle? They're just going to go ahead and get a judgment, attach the judgment to the property, and at some point they're going to get paid, whether they can force a sale or when the homeowner sells the property, then the creditor is going to get paid a full amount. A bankruptcy would alleviate that.
Gotcha. Well, guys, thank you very much for tuning in on today's segment on Bankruptcy Chapter 7 and Chapter 13 with our guest host, Mr. Eric Hansen, attorney. For more information, you can contact Eric on the number that you see on the screen. Again, Eric, thank you for coming out today and being our guest today on the MRC Money Show. Till next time, guys, we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Hector.